Hey, I'm Kristin, and this is Jeanna, and we've actually been friends for
25 years.
Yeah, she came into my house with her middle child in a baby carrier, and he's now a grown man and married and about to have his first child. So that's how long we've known each other, and we happen to be pastors on staff at Grace Family, and so this is the Ask the Pastor segment. We have some questions that we've got that have been submitted, and we're just going to pull them out and try to give you our best advice. Jeanna actually helped me. We helped each other raise our kids, and I think she helped me raise mine more than I helped her raise hers. But
Kristin went before me. I remember I was the mom, desperate for relationship and community. So I was the first one to show up at Kristin's playgroup, Beautiful Moms, and the last one to leave.
I was like, why is this girl hanging around? 25 years later, here's where we are. So we're going to get started with our first question, which is for Jeanna.
Awesome. I'm ready.
My child won't sleep in their room. Nothing seems to work.
The memories are coming back with this one.
Help me, Jeanna.
I definitely had one that struggled with this. So my best advice would probably be to look at your routine with your kids as a whole. It usually isn't all about bedtime. And so looking at being consistent with your bedtime routine, talking to them about what bedtime's going to look like, and then being loving but firm, not hanging out forever in their bedroom, like a quick bedtime story, kissing them goodnight. And then this is the funny part. Jerry and I used to sit in the hallway outside the door, and every time, I'll just say his name, every time Hunter would wake up, we would, without really saying anything, we would pick him up, we would go back to his room, we'd put him back in his bed, and we'd say, Hunter, you're going to stay. And really, it was about winning that battle for us.
So
we were going to stick it out and win that little battle because he was strong-willed, and we knew that there were many battles to come, and so
so how many nights did you and Jerry not sleep because you were putting him back to bed all night long?
It's a season. It doesn't last forever.
I mean, really, though, the reality is you got to be committed, and you might not sleep until 1 a.m. because they will stay awake.
But we wanted to win.
But you have to go through that in order to get to the other side.
I did have a friend who had a great idea and did like a little rewards jar. So every time their child had a good night, they would add something to the jar. And then after so many in the jar, they got like a reward, like going out to get ice cream. That didn't necessarily work for Hunter. It was more about that battle of the wills with Hunter, but it was a good idea.
That's good. Okay. Wow, this is a good one. How do you establish boundaries when it comes to family and outside relationships negatively affecting your children? I remember, you're kind of going along and you're like, oh, we all think the same. Like, we're parenting our kids and we're all the same. We're all the same. And then something happens, you're like, we're not the same. I wouldn't handle that the same. I don't think I'd let my child do that. I don't think I want my kid to act like that. I don't want him to have that attitude or whatever it is. So I definitely can relate all through, parenting from toddler to elementary to high school. You're trying to figure out who are my people, who can I trust, who can I, who's doing it the same way I am, and you kind of get comfortable and you realize you're going to have differences. You are going to have differences. So I would say probably the most important thing is to help your kids learn they are responsible for their choices. That's going to be different in a 4-year-old, in a 6-year-old, in a 10-year-old, in a 15-year-old. But this is the place where you get to establish they have to own their choices, and then you've got to really figure out how much they can handle. Are they strong enough to say, I'm not going to do that, or I'm not allowed to, say that, or I'm not allowed to watch that, whatever those negative influences are,
And really being okay with sometimes we did pull back on relationships, and our kids did spend less time with those influences. And we navigated that gently, but sometimes we knew our kids, it was good for them to learn those lessons, and sometimes we pulled back.
Yeah. Yep. All right, next one. What is a favorite verse that you lived by or taught your kids when they were little?
Oh, this is a good one. I think about Matthew 5:16 definitely sticks out to me with let your light shine. That became a verse I repeated often with my kids and then kind of became a language I used as they were going off for school in the morning. We used to pray on the way to school, and so that's the verse that sticks out to me.
So my favorite verse that I tried to live by was Isaiah 40:31. They that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not grow weary. They will walk and not faint. I was like, Jesus, help me. Anyway, I'm not lying.
Okay, this is for Kristin. Mom, comparison and jealousy. It's hard not to compare the stages of growth and skills of my children to others. How do I get over that?
So I have 3 very different kids, and I think this can happen in your own family. Trying not to compare your kids with each other and expect, well, this one is a reader and this one, can't even put 2 vowels, or put 2 letters together and they're not reading yet, or they're, you're always kind of going to have that. But I would say, the best thing is to really get to the point where you recognize, what are my kids' giftings? What are we good at? And what are we going to focus on as a family? Some families, they're like sports. It's sports, like we're a sports family, this is what we do. I think figuring out like what you want your family to be about and what your values are for your kids, what's most important, and don't lose your focus because you are not called to have the same values. Your kids were in sports.
Yep. I was that sports mom.
Yeah. And you traveled and and we didn't. We didn't do that. Our kids weren't, Casey was, but we just had different levels of importance for different things, and it's okay. You're not going to be like everybody else. So, All right, what's next? How do I raise kind and compassionate kids?
Oh, great question. I would say model it.
Yeah.
I think about love God, love people. How do you show that to your kids? Showing up for the people you love and like talking about that with your kids. So like if we did something, like if we brought a meal to another mom or if we went to clean a friend's house, we talked about that with our kids. So they kind of had a picture of that.
Yeah.
Serving together. We have great opportunities at Grace with Serve Saturday, to serve together as a family. So our kids see that.
That's good. All right. What was a hard season in parenting, and how do you handle it or make it through? You mean like having a 4-year-old who runs the house? Like that hard season? When everyone's telling you what you need to do to fix
Hunter's
it?
name.
Oh, seriously. We went through a really tough season of transition, and I think in the middle of it, we were just trying to make it through. We were in survival mode.
Yeah.
And it was like all of a sudden we woke up and went, oh my gosh, this kid is telling us what to do, and he's running the show, and how did this happen?
Yeah.
You don't set out to find yourself in these, you don't see it coming, I guess is a better way of putting it. A lot of times you don't see that difficult season coming. And we realized, Chris and I sat down, we realized, wow, this is not his fault, but it is our problem. And it's kind of our fault. So we had to come up with a plan. We had to do the hard work. It was very similar to when you were trying to get your kid to sleep through the night. It's like you just have to commit and know that there's not a shortcut. You didn't get here overnight, and it's not going to be a shortcut. But we prayed. We definitely had our people who knew our kids and loved our kids, and they knew they were supporting us in prayer, and they were for our kids. Yeah. They weren't judging us. They weren't judging our kids. They were for us, and we just had to buckle down and, and then of course the teenage years and some, I love the teenage years. That's what I love about you, is because we both were like, I love this, and it's, oh my gosh, it's hard.
So hard.
But I think just really knowing, like, parenting is not for wimps.
Yeah. I think one of the sweetest things of friendship, as you say that, I think about, I got the perspective of seeing God show up in those hard times. You were in the middle of it.
Right.
And we're praying for you and cheering you on, but getting to see your commitment to putting the hard work in and trusting God in the process, but then I got to see God show up in your family over and over.
All right, you want to read one?
Let's see. Okay, what do you do when you and your husband are not on the same page with discipline and or other areas of parenting? Gosh, I think about just spending time talking things through, communication. I think I can definitely look back and go, when Jerry and I weren't on the same page with parenting, it was really a bigger issue. And so we really needed to spend time on our marriage first.
Oh, yeah.
And then the parenting and getting on the same page came after that. And that looked like different seasons. It could have been a parenting group or a married group or us sitting down with a mentor couple who's been there before us, but just working on each other first.
Yeah, and you hit on something. You know, we a lot of times you bring other people in. You're like, help us see what we're not seeing.
Yes. Yes.
He thinks this, I
Yes.
think this, or,
Yes.
you know, help us try to come together.
Jerry and Kristin. Kristin understood Jerry way more than I did.
I'm like, Jeanna, why don't you get him? This is what he's saying.
This is true.
Okay, here's a good one. Anger episodes. I feel out of control as a mom sometimes. How do I fix this?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not a strong personality at all, so I don't know how you lose it. I think, oh my gosh, my poor kids, they were like, am I getting nice, mommy, or am I getting angry, mommy? But anyway, why don't you give us, why don't you tell them what you told me back then?
Well, and I think about getting help. I think anger episodes, and when I lost it with my kids, guilt and shame afterwards, we love our kids. And so the guilt and shame that came after that could keep that quiet in our lives. So the best thing is getting help and going, it's okay to not be okay.
Right.
And so just whoever that looks like in your life, and if you don't have that person, like, you know, like someone at Beautiful Moms or one of our
someone's house. Make your friends.
Yes.
All right. Balancing time with kids and time with my spouse. Share some ideas or tips on how to keep your marriage healthy.
Oh, make it a priority. I think that's where I'm sure you've heard this before, but I'll say it again. Like, set a date night and stick to it, making your husband a priority. One of our favorite things we did before dinner every night after Jerry came home from work, it took a plan for the kids, but we would spend like 15 minutes together before dinner to catch up on our day. Yeah. And I think I loved that our kids got to see we were making a priority and have fun together, but you know, it
so you'll laugh at this. Now, Chris and I are empty nesters, and we still do that.
That's awesome.
We're like,
that's awesome.
Okay, when are we going to have our time to talk?
Yes.
When you get home.
I so looked forward to that.
Yeah.
Adult conversation.
You create habits, and you don't walk away from them. Okay, practical ways you incorporated biblical truths with toddlers. Oh gosh, so funny story. Like when my kids were little, I just would put worship on in the car, and they would start to get in the car and say, Mommy, I want to hear this song. Mommy, I want to hear this song. It was part of, I needed it for me. Yeah. And so I didn't realize the impact that was having on them. You know, they were just, they're going to follow you. Yeah. They're like little ducks.
2 of Kristin's 3 are worship leaders.
Yeah. So they are. And that was
all 3 are worshipers.
Yes. That was my hope, though. It was like, wow, they're following me. And when I would get discouraged, I would think, okay, but they're following me, so I can change this because I can start going in a different direction if I'm not if I'm not creating good habits. But
Kristin's point is important, that make it simple. Think about the rhythms you already have in place and how do you add small things to that. So you look at bedtime, dinner time, time in the car, and add small things to that. And so I think that's my best tip.
Yeah, it's good. All right. I feel like I do everything. How do I share the work of parenting, get both parents to contribute equally? This kind of goes back to what Jeanna was talking about, like sit down and talk about, make a plan. Yeah. You need to have a meeting and then you need to make a plan, and then you need to keep having meetings. We don't accidentally get the family that we hope, the picture of like, okay, we want our kids loving Jesus and we want to be in unity, or we want to try to stay on the same page as much as we can, and we want to be a team, and we want to we want to work together, and we want to share the load. That doesn't happen without a plan. And you may laugh and think it's funny, but my husband would be like, personally, he'd be like, I got to get with my personal board of directors, the men in his life that help him, as he was coming up, and even now he still has it. He's got to have that. I got to touch base. I got to get with them. We got to have our family meeting. This is the board of directors in our family. Yeah. We got to get on the same. And again, if we're at an impasse, they're like, hey, we need people to come in and help us see what we're not seeing. But I just think making a plan for where you want to go. I'm not like sit down and set up goals for. My husband's so funny. He's like, let's write out all our goals. I'm like, go away from me. I don't like to do that. I like to wing it.
That's why you need to talk.
I'm not wired like you. He's like, I can help you get organized. I'm like, I don't want to organize myself like you. I love you, but I don't want to be like that. And for myself, it doesn't work for me. I appreciate it in him. I need him.
Yeah.
And he needs me to bring that balance. But it's just funny because we are different, and we've got to have communication, and we have to make a plan. So even though I'm not like, let's set goals, I'm more of let's set the vision, and then let's steer towards the vision, and let's make sure. Then we can check: is this getting us to our vision? Is this going in the right direction? Yep.
So good.
Yeah.
So good. Okay. Does mom guilt ever end? I'm scared I'm not going to be enough for my child.
Oh, wow.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And I feel like you've helped me a lot with this one.
Well, I think that in my own spiritual walk of realizing I'm not enough.
Yeah.
The lie is you got to do it all, you got to have it all, you got to be it all, you got to get it perfect, you got to do what everyone else is doing on, in your friend group. You have to have all the giftings. You have to do it all, or you at least have to have 5 out of 10, And if you have 3, you're like, why can't I get this right? How do I, And I think that mom comparison is a trap, and the best thing you can do is get through freedom and deal with it, but also recognize, God, I am not enough, but you are.
Yep.
Help me to see what is important here and where I need to, really focus. So, I think we have one more. And this is a really important one. They're all important, but I'm glad that this is where we're landing, because this is a reality for a lot of parents, and for them and for their kids. So this one says, my 6-year-old has anxiety. How do I manage with this without focusing too much on one child over the other? This is something that I've had a lot of conversations with, and now I have 8 grandkids, and they're 9 to 1. So you're starting to see kids are dealing with anxiety more and more. There's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of different variables, and I think one of the most important things is to figure out when to talk to your child about what they're feeling. And how to pull out of them and really ask questions in that one-on-one, and give them, give them tools to express their feelings. One of the best things that we just kind of stumbled on was, the timeouts of, okay, you sense that child getting anxious. What are some things that you can do to help them process through it? Is it breathing exercises? Is it, go jump on the trampoline? I was
going to say, I remember you going out with your kids on the trampoline, and I remember some key moments, and amazing conversations with your kids of helping them through.
Well, I remember one time we went out and laid on the trampoline and just looked up at the leaves and the trees, and that's where they would talk. A lot of times your kids they're not
right.
What's going on? What's the matter with you? And if you can get them looking at something else and just talking, that will be, that helps them to open up. But there's all kinds of different tools and resources out there. But I think the main thing is just recognize this is something that they need your help navigating, but you don't have to do this by yourself.
Yeah, so good.
So,
and I think about like the questions we ask our kids, like asking questions to get them talking, that it might not start out with what they're anxious about, but it's getting them talking. So it could be like, did you like breakfast this morning? But then they're thinking about breakfast and talking about it, and then you can go into asking about their feelings. And so sometimes we can help our kids figure out their emotions by the questions we ask and just the time we spend with them. You know, we are busy. I loved the part about how do you do that and not spend more time with one child over the other. I think about times where it was a family thing, or it was like a walk. I took all 3 kids, but Easton was my one that it was tough to pull out, you know, how he was feeling. But if you were on a walk, or if we were in the car and I started talking to him, all of a sudden he starts talking, and so that helps a lot.
So the last thing that we were asked was, do we have a life hack?
She's got some good ones.
Okay, so one of them, this was my life hack. I came up with it, and I was like, I got to figure this out. I had 3 kids in 2.5 years, and I was busy. I was going and whatever, and one of my other friends at the time when we were living in Orlando, she thought this was terrible. She just hated this idea. She thought it was the worst idea ever. I was like, well, it's not your life, so you don't have to do it. But I was busy. I was taking my kids everywhere, so I had a potty in my car. Because how many people want to take 3 toddlers into a public bathroom and they touch everything, and then you're like, I don't want to touch you. I don't want you touching you. I don't want me touching you. I don't want, like, you need a deep dip bath.
Yeah.
So I had a potty, like a little potty seat in my car all the time.
Yep.
And I would be like, everybody go. Now we're going into the store. Everybody go. Now we're going to the park. So that's you can judge me, but hey, I did not spend a lot of time in dirty bathrooms. But the last one, and this is my daughter Taylor. She's got 3 kids, and she told me this about 6 months ago, and I was like, that is brilliant. So I'm going to give you this as a freebie. I did not do this. The laundry. How do you keep up with the laundry with all the kids?
Yes.
And maybe I could do the laundry, but I couldn't get it put away. All the things, the folding, it's a never ending. So this is what she did. She does her kids' laundry, and she puts it all in a basket in the middle of their loft. And she's like, okay, kids, go get your laundry. And they literally have to pick out all their stuff. Now, her kids are 8, 7, and 5. They pick out all their laundry from the stuff, and then they know which drawers it goes in, so it goes in. They have to put it away. They don't fold it. She's like, I don't care if they fold it. I just don't want to have to fold it and put it away. Yeah. So now, fast forward 6 months, this is hilarious, because I'm like, well, I guess it doesn't matter if their clothes are wrinkled or whatever. Now they're folding it. They go in, and now her oldest doesn't, but the girls are like, they sit down and they fold their clothes and put them in the right drawers. I'm like, Taylor, that's amazing.
I love it.
I love it when you the goal is you raise your kids and they're smarter than you. And I would have to say
I love
that is smarter than me.
Good job, Taylor.
So we've had so much fun. We hope we've helped you, and we just are here for you and praying for you. And thanks for letting us share today.